Okay, Polestar is often brought up as a Tesla competitor. We'll take a look at the Polestar 2 and compare it with Tesla. Yes, I'm sure we can already work out how this review will go, but what am I supposed to say? The numbers won't lie. But I want to be honest. And let's face it, this car is not actually a real person. I won't hurt its feelings by being as brutally honest as necessary in order to get across the points that matter. Besides, the target audience of this channel are Tesla investors. Therefore, the ultimate question should be, is it any competition to Tesla? As for the company, Polestar itself is owned by the Chinese company Geely. It's also the parent company to Volvo, Lotus and Proton brands, along with others. Therefore, unfortunately, the financials of the company won't be able to tell us specifically too much about Polestar's profits or losses. The Polestar 2 is a direct competitor to the Tesla Model 3, so we will compare the two. As for the looks of the Polestar, it's not too bad. It does look a little bit like a Volvo though, for obvious reasons, and there still seems to be a big black grille at the front. The exterior looks okay, and I could understand if some people did prefer it to a Model 3 even. However, will looks alone be enough to convert a Tesla driver to a Polestar? Remember, Teslas look the way they do for a lot of reasons, including safety and drag coefficient. 0.23 CD for the Tesla compared to just 0.28 CD for the Polestar. The trick is making it functional, yet still aesthetic. The Polestar also weighs over 660 more pounds than the Model 3. Now granted, as for the interior, Polestar have gone the route of minimalism. Not too many buttons on the dash, and a nice big center screen. However, there are still a few buttons below the screen, and the big screen, well, it's not widescreen. It's in portrait mode. I've said this before again and again. You must have a wide screen. How they are not able to understand this is very odd. So few EVs actually have a large widescreen. But apparently the Polestar screen may eventually have Netflix and YouTube with over-the-air updates. Although, as it's not widescreen, the viewing area will be very small. The Polestar also decided to add another screen in front of the driver too. It does look very big and bulky to me. Tesla's Model S driver's dash screen looks a lot more sleek and smooth. And of course Tesla's Model 3 doesn't even have one. And then below the center screen we have, yes, what looks like a gear stick. There is simply no point in any gear sticks anymore. They will start to look very dated soon. There don't seem to be too many buttons on the steering wheel, but they don't look as easy or tidy as the Tesla steering wheel buttons. And then moving on to the dash, it has air vents. Although they do appear to be somewhat hidden almost, I guess it must be pretty embarrassing these days for legacy autos still having to show air vents in their cars, despite how obviously dated and old-fashioned they look these days. I wonder how much of an HVAC the Polestar would really offer. The air vents are small and there aren't very many. None in the center, due to the center screen actually being positioned in the right place for once. But I believe this is part of the reason legacy autos don't usually have their control screens this low for the driver. They usually prop them up higher on the dash because below them are air vents. But this car has skipped air vents in the center in order to make a more usable screen. This seems to be a problem for legacy autos. One of the major advantages of Tesla managing to remove their air vents. It makes for a much tidier cabin and dash, and easier design functionality. The Polestar does appear to have wireless charging though, and also offers USB-C chargers, but the dash and seats still look a bit cheaper than a Tesla. Although I saw on the door something that really caught my eye, that also looks quite old-fashioned these days, a door handle. Now I've gotten used to not having a door handle in my Tesla, and I merely press a button to open the door. Door handles are starting to look very old-fashioned. The center screen is all Android based, with the likes of Google Maps. So perhaps Android will be the Android of in-car operating systems. However, I wonder if Tesla would allow FSD to be an application on the Android device, or that you must have a Tesla operating system for FSD, i.e., if legacy autos wanted to offer Tesla FSD, would it require the Tesla operating system instead of the Android? Okay, that's all the window dressing out the way. Now down to what matters. In the US, the Polestar 2 starts at $45,990, which is $1,000 more than the standard Tesla Model 3. But the Polestar actually has more range than the Tesla, at 270 miles versus just 267 miles from the Tesla. So far, the Polestar seems to be doing reasonably well then. Two EVs, about the same price, with the same range. When we come to look at the performance of the Polestar though, we only get 7 seconds 0 to 60 time, compared to 5.8 from the Tesla. In other words, it's kind of a slow car, but probably still suitable for a lot of people's driving. The interior does come standard with cloth seats, which do cheapen the look of the car, compared to Tesla's vegan leather, and it costs an additional $4,000 to get the leather upholstery in the Polestar. And if you want some of the other extras that come standard in a Tesla, like cameras and adaptive cruise control, then that's another $3,200. And then the premium options like a better sound system and the panoramic roof, heated power seats, etc., then that's another $4,000. In other words, to get these low price points, the standard version of these Polestars are very basic and cost about $10,000 to get up to Tesla's standard. Well, I say Tesla standard, but what I mean is as close as they can. Obviously, the adaptive cruise control is nothing close to Tesla's autopilot. Oh, and there doesn't appear to be any LiDAR in the car either, meaning it will not likely ever be suitable for any form of FSD. Now, Polestar achieved these specifications with a 78 kilowatt-hour nickel-based battery, compared to Tesla with a 60 kilowatt-hour LFP battery. Now just think for a second there how much cheaper Tesla's battery pack is costing. Also, think about how Tesla are able to get the same range and more performance with such a smaller, less energy-dense battery. This is just another example of how much better Tesla is, even than the Polestar, a car that quite a few people give praise to. But there is another version of the Polestar, a dual motor version too, and it only costs an extra $4,000 from the single motor version. It can reach 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, and actually comes in $1,000 cheaper than the long-range Model 3. The Model 3 can still do 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds though, so the Polestar can't quite match it on performance. Oh, right, and it only gets, you won't believe this, 249 miles of range, compared to the Tesla with 358 miles of range. The Tesla literally gets over 100 miles more range than the Polestar, and the Tesla only costs $1,000 more. Well, actually about $10,000 less when you match them like for like, with all the extra options you have to purchase on the Polestar to match what comes standard with the Tesla. Polestar are going for the European and US EV markets though, which is why they are offering nearly 300 miles of range. Wait, 300? No, only 270 miles. But that is still probably close to adequate for a lot of drivers. But my point is, if they're going for these markets with a longish range, then they're doing it with nickel-based batteries, not LFP, which means their costs will be very high and they won't be able to ramp up very fast. I swear, all the reviews I watched on them were just trying to compare it to the Model 3, and any little way possible, the reviewers would make a dig at the Tesla, saying that Tesla doesn't have this, or the Polestar can do this that the Tesla cannot. Almost as if the reviewers had been paid to make it look better than the Tesla as much as possible. Anyone who says otherwise simply isn't doing a proper EV review. Tesla makes every single EV look pale in comparison. I mean, it's ridiculous really. It's like a flip phone versus an iPhone, and the reviewers are saying just how good quality the buttons are on the flip phone. Or like comparing a phone that gets high-speed internet with one that has no internet. It's simply superfluous. So the Polestar has terrible range, is expensive relative to a Tesla, especially when you factor in the options. It's not a particularly good looking car. The interior does look kind of cheap. It isn't particularly advanced in technology, just a few bells and whistles to make it look as exciting as possible, to distract from the specifications that really matter, range and performance at the right price point. Of course, they won't be able to ramp up to any serious production anytime soon. Oh, and Polestar still lose money on their BEVs. Polestar is no threat to Tesla, but if they can last long enough, then perhaps they can carve out a small market for themselves within time, but I think they'll grow too slow and have not done anything unique. They haven't niched from Tesla and instead tried to compete with them head on. I definitely would not invest in this company. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.